Father Vince, tell me about your role within the Indianapolis Archdiocese.
So back in 2005, I was appointed to be the exorcist, the priest appointed by the bishop to be the priest in the diocese who would investigate cases of alleged demonic activity and then determine whether or not that was something truly valid that would require a exorcism from the church.
So in terms of our discussion, let me just hop right to it. A woman who is now wanted for murder, police believe she may have killed her son and that she may have believed that her son was demon possessed, tried to reach out to you in April. And this was the message, which you may have already heard, but it said, it's sent to you on Twitter, which you never saw, you told me, but it says, "Good day, sir. I need to speak with you urgently. I have survived the death attacks from my 5-year-old throughout the 5 years he has been alive. I have been able to weaken his powers through our blood. I have his real name and he is 100 years old. Need assistance." How would you have responded to that message if you had seen it?
Yeah, the Catholic Church has a very strict protocol when it comes to people who believe that they're dealing with demonic forces. As an exorcist, I'm trained to be a skeptic. Every other possible explanation would have to be exhausted before the church would determine that somebody is truly possessed and needs an exorcism. So the protocol would require someone to have a psychiatric evaluation by a psychiatrist, a psychologist. Secondly, the church would require someone to have a physical examination by their medical doctor. So the church is asking experts in these two fields to weigh in on a situation to determine whether or not this is truly demonic or somebody suffering from a mental health issue or perhaps has some type of physical ailment. Also, in these cases, I would always tell the person, have they reached out to the pastor of their home church or a religious leader, depending on what faith tradition they belong to? Because if it's a spiritual matter, people should always take that first to the religious leader of the faith tradition to which they belong, and then allow that person to provide them with some pastoral care, guidance, and direction.
What is your initial thoughts and just on a general basis about a child possibly being demon possessed?
Well, the Catholic Church would say that a child cannot bring upon any type of demonic activity through their own actions. God would protect and safeguard children because of their innocence. Now, if a child is being afflicted by evil, then someone who has authority over them, such as a parent or a guardian, would bear that responsibility.
If there was an exorcism performed, or if in some way some kind of process move forward, would there ever be anything that called for a child to be physically harmed or physically restrained, or something that could harm that child, which it appears that police believe may have happened to this young man?
Absolutely not. Exorcism at its very core is a prayer. It's a prayer addressed to God who is being asked to bring relief into the life of somebody who's experiencing some type of demonic affliction in their life. And because one is relying on the power and the authority of God, there would be no need to bring about any physical harm to the person or even restrain them. We see a lot of that perhaps portrayed in different movies and things, but that certainly is not a reality. It's one of the reasons why, as an exorcist, when I was appointed back in 2005, my bishop said that if I was comfortable enough, then I could be visible, kind of be out there, because a lot of exorcists choose to remain anonymous. But by being in the public forum, it affords me the opportunity to really help educate people about what the church truly believes and teaches, because oftentimes the ministry of exorcism can take on an aura or a life of its own. And really, it's an opportunity for me to debunk a lot of the myths that people may have and provide them with what the truth what the church truly teaches about this subject.
And I appreciate that, Father Vince. And I'm guessing you've already said most of this, but then what are some of those myths or things that you would want to debunk that are probably only going to be heightened by a case like this?
Yeah, it's unfortunate, I think, that we live in an era when maybe there's a great fascination with the reality of evil. As a priest, a religious figure, leader, if you will, the focus should always be on the power of God and what God wants to do in people's lives. Oftentimes when people reach out to me, they've already self-diagnosed. They're not asking me, do you think I'm dealing with the demonic? They come in already self-diagnosed by doing their own research. And oftentimes people can get angry and upset with me because I don't affirm what it is that they believe, the conclusion that they've drawn. It's my role again to really be a skeptic, because I often believe that the church would cause greater harm if she labels the person as being possessed, and that label prevents the person from getting the true help that they need. So I've always believed that whether it be the priest, the psychiatrist, the medical doctor, we should all be working together, because obviously the person who has reached out is suffering on some level. And then the overriding goal should be to give that person the help that they truly need, not perhaps what they think they need, such as an exorcism, but providing them with good mental health care. I will say that in recent years, the number of people who reach out to me is escalated. I get about 70 inquiries a week from all over the United States and even other parts of the world of people who believe they're dealing with the demonic. And the number one thing I always say to them is, first of all, go and talk to the pastor of your church, get some pastoral care and guidance and direction, and don't be afraid to reach out to get some mental help. There's no shame, because there's a lot of people today I think are suffering mentally. Coming right out of COVID-19, we've been in isolation. So many people's lives have changed dramatically recently. So there is no shame in reaching out for help, but people also have to be receptive to the fact that perhaps the help they truly need is not what they believe. I had someone who reached out to me one time who believed that they were dealing with the demonic. In working with them, I told them that it wasn't demonic, it was a mental health issue. But unfortunately, if people draw the conclusion that they're dealing with the demonic, they will continue to reach out to someone until they finally get the response that they want. And this particular individual really believed that it was demonic, found what he told me was a professional exorcist who was going to charge him $7,500 to get rid of the demons. And obviously, the ministry of exorcism, there's no money involved in that. It's a ministry of charity and compassion. But unfortunately, there are people out there that will prey on people's brokenness and not really direct them to the place where they can get the true help that they need. So even though people may reach out to me, there's a lot of people that get angry and upset with me because they presume that as a priest, I'm going to automatically assume that it's something demonic. But I've been trained to be a skeptic. I really have to reach the point where, beyond a doubt, that the person in front of me is truly dealing with the demonic. And the way that I would draw that conclusion would be relying on the expert opinion of a mental health expert and also a medical doctor before I would even begin to draw that conclusion. I would even want people to know that there is no such thing as an emergency exorcism. Obviously somebody is dealing with brokenness in their lives, and that needs to be a very methodical process to bring the person to the place where they can get the true help that they need, whether it again be spiritual, physical, or mental.
How do you decide? How do you discover? How do you learn? And where is the balance or line between a mental illness and demon influence?
I always believe that from a Christian perspective, that it's the ordinary aspects of our faith that protect and safeguard us from the reality of evil. There's a lot of people out there that might say that evil is something of our own making. It's humanity's inhumane treatment of one another. But from a Christian perspective, we believe that evil is personified. Those accounts are reiterated throughout the Bible, and especially in the New Testament, accounts of Jesus casting out demons, Jesus even made a clear distinction between doing an exorcism and healing those who are sick. So there is a clear distinction between the two. But again, it's so important to really move in a very methodical fashion and not be too quick to put a label on someone. Again, if somebody is really living out their faith, we don't have to do anything extraordinary to defeat demonic attacks. If one is a Christian, if you're going to church, if you're praying, you're reading the Bible, I would like to let people know that the devil's already on the run. It's usually when people don't do the basics of their faith where they start to get themselves into trouble. Unfortunately, I think we live in an age when perhaps people have become bored with traditional faith, and so they begin to dabble in things that perhaps may create an entry point for the demonic into their life. But again, the very ordinary aspects of our faith will protect and safeguard us. You know, there's a great line in 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 8, where it says, your opponent, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion. Resist him, solid in your faith. So if we are solid in our faith and our commitment to God, the devil is nothing to fear.
Awesome. Thank you for that response. So you said you get about 70 calls a week. How often does all of something like this actually lead to a formal exorcism, if I can put it that way?
Very rarely. So the church does say that evil is a reality personified in what we call the devil and these other evil spirits, but only perhaps 1 out of every 5,000 cases. So when I was appointed an exorcist back in 2005, I did my training in Rome. The church says that the best way to learn how to do the ministry is through the apprenticeship model, a well-seasoned exorcist. There were very few exorcists in the United States in the Catholic Church back in 2005. So I lived in Rome for 3 months and was able to participate in 40 exorcisms that this priest who was training me performed. And then I was able to learn firsthand the ministry to those who were up against the forces of evil. So again, it's about knowledge and working in this ministry. And, you know, over the years, I've had an opportunity to talk to a lot of people. But over the 17 years I've done this ministry, I believe I've only dealt with about 15 people where it's truly been cases of demonic possession. The church does recognize that there's different levels of demonic activity. There can be demonic infestation where there's a presence of evil in a location or associated with an object. People can experience vexation, which are physical attacks. There can be obsession, which are mental attacks. But again, demonic possession in and of itself is extremely rare.
And let me just close by bringing us back to this case and reemphasize that from your perspective, there would be nothing that even if the child was under a demonic influence or demon possessed, or however you want to say it, there would be no reason for a mother to harm her child to remedy that situation.
Absolutely not. Because again, you know, a demon is a spirit. It doesn't have a body. So inflicting pain really then would be on that person, their body, and not on any evil spirit that would be present. So there would never be a reason to bring about any physical harm to someone who may be dealing with the demonic.
I don't know, have you looked into this enough to draw any conclusions, or have you, what's been sort of your reaction to being drug into this, if you will?
Well, first of all, it's a very sad reality of the death of that child. Certainly we need to be praying for him, for the family, even be praying for the mother that, obviously she's dealing with some issues that need to be addressed. So it's a very unfortunate situation. But anytime something occurs, perhaps we need to step back and say, as tragic as this is, what can we take from this situation to make sure that we move forward in a very positive manner? Because there's a lot of people out there that believe they're dealing with the demonic. They may find themselves in a very similar situation. So how can we use this as an opportunity to really help educate people, first of all, about the reality of evil, and also about the importance of people getting help from the mental health profession if they're suffering some type of brokenness in their life. Again, a lot of people are broken today, and this is a very unfortunate situation. but what can we learn from it to help put people in a lot better spaces in their life?
And it sounds like people are finding you without any problem, but you're here to serve not just the Indianapolis Archdiocese, it sounds like, or how should people contact you or reach you, or what resources are available to them if they feel like they should contact you?
I always say, first of all, again, I would go back to what I said earlier. If anybody believes that they're dealing with the demonic, the very first place to go is to your home church. Or if you belong to another faith tradition, go and talk to that religious leader. If you're feeling sick, what's the first thing you do? You talk to your family doctor, who then may refer you to a specialist if they believe that is necessary. The number of people that contact me, there's no way that I can minister to all of them. I can provide maybe some help over a very specific time, but people will need ongoing pastoral care, and that will always be best served in their own faith community. So I kind of view myself as someone who wants to help guide and direct people to where they can get the help that they really need. And then it should be their faith leader that would refer them to someone else if they believe that is warranted.